Good evening, friends. Welcome to the second edition of the India Power Talk. Briefly stated, we are on the 60th day of an unprecedented global lockdown due to coronavirus. As I mentioned in my first talk, while the race to find medical solution at some stage may come to an end, but our race to find economic solution may continue for some time. Today, we may not have any authentic data to assess the direct and indirect damage to the global economy. But certainly, I guess the damage is going to be huge. And I think it is important for us to put our heads down to find solutions, strategies, and gain some insights from experienced leaders like the distinguished guest that we have today. India Power Talk, in association with Indian Chamber of Commerce, the oldest chamber in India, is an effort to seek guidance and constructive suggestions from the international leaders on what could be done to revive Indian economy. We would be inviting entrepreneurs, economists, professors, investment bankers, scientists, lawyers, chartered accountants, and other professionals having similar experience from diverse sectors who could contribute on the subject. Without wasting time, let me introduce you to the audience, our today's guest, Mr. Franz Kolb. His career began as a director for international service at Ernst & Young, working with large international companies and organizations, advising them on international business strategies and implementation. As mentioned, currently he is a director, international trade and diplomacy at the Governor's Office of Economic Development in Salt Lake City, Utah. Whilst discussing with you last week and also yesterday, two things came very prominently. One is the economic development and your passion for education. Could you begin and share your experiences in India? And then could you also tell us the economic success story of Utah and how it could relate to India?
Thank you very much for this very kind introduction. I am delighted to be at India Power Talk. I think credit needs to go to one of my friend and mentor, Dr. Ashok Joshi, who my very first task, when the very first time went to India, find out how important India is to the economy of Utah, what the opportunities are. And so the state of Utah, capital is Salt Lake City. From 1847 to today, and over the years, what has been considered the #1 economy in the United States was through collaboration, was through working together. And I will be pointing out some of those things that made our, what we would call, desert bloom. When it came to India in 2010, 2000 and later, we found a young population that is willing to learn. We found people that had a great work ethic, that needed an infrastructure to bring the best out of them. To me, it was not a surprise because we have this great diaspora of India here in Utah. Sir, I need to tell you honestly, I'm originally from Austria, from Salzburg, Austria, but no country in my life has changed me more than India, and I say this very sincerely.
I was talking to one of my friends today from Denver. He told me that Colorado and state of Salt Lake City are all mountain cities, mountain states, and these mountain states, the investment from these mountain states in India is huge, which is not really talked about.
Yes, we have. What we have done over the years is we meaning Utah specifically, and also some of the intermountain states, we have internationalized our economy.
I see.
We in Utah are maybe one of the leaders, and the reason is we have made a commitment. One of the ways to internationalize the economy, we'll maybe talk about that a little bit later, is to educate the people. So one of the tools of the 21st century is to teach the next generation languages. The languages of the world. So we are speaking in Utah 133 languages doing the daily activities of business. We have, for example, and we have immersion programs where we teach from kindergarten to school. We have, for example, 16,000 people that are learning Mandarin Chinese. So that is one thing. When it comes to investment to India, I could just maybe mention one company that comes to mind. A company called O.C. Tanner, which is a 100-year-old company in Utah. They are a leader in employee recognition.
That's really great insight, and that's very encouraging, I must say. I mean, can you comment upon the large potential that Indian market has, and what would be your serious advice to the global corporations, considering the huge Indian market?
Yes. So what I will do is I will tell you a little bit about what we have done here, and then I'm going to talk about India. We have had one of the most thriving economies in the United States pre-COVID. We realized when this came that this will have a significant economic impact, not only on the state of Utah, not only on the United States, but globally. It is unprecedented. What we did is we were one of the only states that put a plan together. It was a collaboration with business, with healthcare, with everyone. And we made sure that we minimize this impact.
I see.
We came up with 4 kind of phases. And, there was a red phase, there's an orange, yellow, and green phase. And we're happy to share this, our experience. We are now in Utah in the yellow phase.
I see.
So we have been opening up a little bit. And you also had some lockdowns and so on and so forth. And it is really it's a challenge for the governments to determine what's, shutting down the economy versus health of the people. What is there a balance? How can we make sure that our economies will survive COVID-19?
Yeah.
What's important is there are countries that are very export focused, such as India. And so that will have an impact on India. And but the key is in the specialization and to determine what are the competitive excellence position, what is India good at, and then they will continue to be able to export to to various countries, including the United States.
I would still want to know from you as to how would international companies look at, or I'm sure they will look at India as also a big market. So, from considering from that perspective, do you really see corporations making investments in India?
India is an absolutely important market. It is a subcontinent of the 21st century. Yes. India has a young population that is willing and wants to learn. There are certain things that we may talk a little bit later from an educational perspective, but we cannot, in the 21st century, ignore India. We are considering down the road another trade mission. Now we cannot travel anywhere, but we are considering a virtual trade mission also.
I see.
With India through our World Trade Center. We're working with them, and they're also working together with the World Trade Center Mumbai.
Whilst we have large corporations, but we also have a very large population of medium-sized and small and medium-sized enterprises, and they have a huge potential. And we have in fact around 4 million of small and medium enterprises. They are hungry of capital. They are hungry of technology. They want to collaborate. They want international brands to work with. What would your advice be to them?
So here's what's interesting. In Utah, we have 92% of small and medium-sized companies. So we the small and medium-sized companies are the backbone of Utah. We set everyone around the table and we said, government is not creating jobs. It is businesses that create jobs. It's the business that takes risks, the entrepreneur takes risks, and so there should be a reward. That's what our governor always says. The other thing was taxation, was also very important. Don't tax us to death. Now, I need to tell you here that the state of Utah has a tax rate of 5%. And out of those 5%, 41% goes into education. That's the way we fund our education. What needs to happen is there needs to be an environment that rewards entrepreneurs and risk takers. We developed small business development centers. We develop through the small business. We have seminars. We have a governor's office of economic development that I work in that helps companies, for example, to get government contracts and all.
Great. No, that's really interesting. But I must also say here that, look, in India, the regulations with regard to small and medium-sized companies are very, very conducive and favorable. The ranking of ease of doing business has improved tremendously in the last 4 or 5 years. We have improved it, consciously taken steps to improve it. Regulations with regard to incorporation of company or starting of business are fairly today very simple and very very investor friendly. What would you advise to the SME, medium segment and small companies in US and also in India? What would your advice be to them? Would you recommend them to collaborate in some form or the other and grow each other's business? What would you advise them?
The key is to have the ability to put a business plan together. I think a business plan that consists of a vision, goals, objectives, strategies, and implementation, and a roadmap for the success of a business. And this could be very simple. It doesn't have to be, but should be reviewed periodically. And I know an entrepreneur many times only goes with a gut feel, which I think is okay. But
let's move to from economy to education. Indian government is very keen that foreign universities commence their online programs or even have their campuses. Do you think that global universities should look at India as a place for campuses?
I think when it comes to education, India is ripe for foreign universities. My goodness, it is absolutely incredibly important. And I have never in my life seen more dedicated students than I've seen in these schools. And I'm telling, in fact, I was so impressed that I had the opportunity to adopt one girl, and I helped her with her education a little bit. Her name was Trupti Shinde, I'll never forget. The reason I'm telling you this is that in order for India to prosper in the 21st century, education is absolutely important. There will be international education organizations coming in, that's fine. There will be, there already are, as we all know. Yes, universities should come over. They should collaborate with existing universities.
Joint programs between the universities are currently also allowed. They allow the joint programs, they allow joint degrees, but still in a very slightly compressed manner.
So it comes down to is the desire for education is in India,
yes.
3 exclamation marks. So if that's the case, so the demand is there.
Yes.
And since the demand is there, universities from everywhere should come over there and I think it would be a very, very fertile ground.
Anything specific you would like to add about the skill-based education or vocational education? What would you say?
Yes, I think that is very important because everybody always talks about a university. We have this issue here in Utah as well. In fact, we have that in America. But it's these skills that I believe are important, that are transferable, that extreme. So there are some people that just don't want to go to universities, don't maybe have the yes. aptitude to go to the university.
Yes, you are absolutely right.
It's these things, that this skill-based education that I believe incredibly important in India, that will help in rural communities, people that just don't have access to university. And I think that should be formalized to
In
share.
fact, in fact, I must tell you that look, there is large number of students who are school dropouts, because of financial constraints or otherwise. There are in rural areas there are not too many higher educational schools. So in India, there's a huge opportunity for in global institutions in technical skills or vocational training, for them to come to India and cater to this large population of students.
I think that is fairly easy. These are fairly easily transferable programs.
What would your a couple of strategic takeaways would be for the foreign companies who are looking at India to set up their manufacturing base or inputs for the educational institutions globally?
So as far as companies going to India, I think one of the first thing is that don't go there for the short term, go there for the long term. I think it's important that India, when it comes to the 21st century, will be a leader, and it will be, my other advice would be get a mentor in India. Companies, a lot of people don't understand that there is some serious purchasing power when it comes to a certain segment of the population in India. It is just phenomenal what these opportunities are. And I think educational institutions, the time is now to go over to India and start out with maybe with some small collaborations, and then later on they will expand. But the times are tough. Let's be honest, times are tough now. But during tough times is when you really know who your friends are.
That this has been a fantastic evening to hear Franz Kolb. I must sincerely thank him for having taken time for sharing his valuable insights and experience. I would like also thank the Indian Chamber of Commerce for extending their support in organizing this in the following Friday. Till then, let's stay happy and stay safe. Thank you. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.